Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Jessica. I'm with Literary Arts. Thank you all for being here for an evening with the 2022 Oregon Book Award finalists for graphic literature. Before we get started, I want to open up the space with the land acknowledgement. Literary Arts is based in Portland, Oregon, and we are currently on unceded land. The Monoma, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Walalabans, the Tualatin Kalpuya, and many other indigenous nations of the Columbia River occupied and operated this land long before Western colonizers arrived, and many continue to do so today. Despite attempts of removal and erasure, these communities remain a strong and vital part of our future. Literary Arts recognizes that this acknowledgement is only a small step in affirming the ongoing presence and contributions of our Native communities, and we commit to engaging these communities more fully as we fulfill our mission. For those of you who are not familiar with Literary Arts, we are a nonprofit community-based arts organization with more than 35 years of serving readers and writers. Our mission is to engage readers, support writers, and to inspire the next generation with great literature. Our programs include Portland Arts and Lectures, programs for youth, the Oregon Book Awards and Fellowships Program, and the Portland Book Festival. We also offer reader seminars, writing classes, and free literary events like this one year-round. Our Oregon Book Award and ceremony will be held in person this year at the Armory on Monday, April 25th. For tickets and more information, you can head over to literary-arts.org, and I can also post that in the chat. Just as a reminder, we will be hearing from our finalists tonight, and then we will have time for questions from the audience. If you would like to ask a question, please use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. You can also go ahead and put them in the chat and I will catch them. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our first reader for the night, Breena Bard. Hi. Don't go yet. Breena Bard is a cartoonist who writes comics for kids and kids at heart. Prior to Trespassers, her mainstream publishing debut, the self-published 2 graphic novels and an ongoing webcomic. She lives with her husband and 2 kids in Portland, where she is currently working on her next book. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Just to set up my reading, Trespassers is the story of Gabby Woods and her family on vacation at the lake. And she, while they're out on a canoe trip, she sees a kind of mysterious cabin and her mind starts turning about what happened there. So it ends up being a story within a story as she's writing her version of events. And I think that should be enough to get you started here. It kind of picks up right after she has started writing her story. So let me get this going. All right. Okay, so this is just the cover. And there's their cabin. She grabs her hat, grabs a pen and a notebook. And here we go. Happy writing, Gabby. Thanks. Sits in her hammock. And here's her story. Angela's body. In the warm glow of the morning sun, it looked almost peaceful, as if she were sleeping, but she was certainly not. When Walter found her lying there, he was beside himself. His heart raced as he tried to remember what had occurred the night before. He vaguely recalled a heated debate, or was it a full-blown argument? His dread grew with every passing minute. Walter began to wonder if perhaps he had taken his wife's life. But I would never. He looked down at his aching hands and was terrified to think of what he might have done with them. There were too many unanswerable questions, and the police would jump to the immediate conclusion he was guilty. I must move you, my dear, but just until I get this sorted out. I will find out who killed you, even if it was me. But Walter's time was running out faster than he realized, and the detective has a warrant. So there's Gabby, very pleased with her writing. And this guy is their neighbor at the cabin, Jean. The next great American novelist, hard at work. Hi, Jean. Did my mom tell you I was writing a story? I just figured that gleam in your eye was your imagination at work. My Emmy used to get that look in her eyes when she would write stories. I'm writing a mystery, a murder mystery. Oh, I enjoy a good mystery. What's yours about? It's all about what happened at the Goldsworth house. Oh, really? Yeah, Mom told me Goldsworth and his wife disappeared 30 years ago after a party there. So in my story, Angela got murdered at the party and Walter is the prime suspect. Sounds like an interesting story. I'm just making up the details. I have no idea what actually happened, of course. Well, I'd love to read it when it's done. Sure. Oh, here comes Simon. I told him we could go on the lake after I wrote for a bit. You kids have fun. Going out on the water? Yeah. Hey, you should invite the neighbor kids. Oh, come on. They would probably love to explore with you. They don't even like the water. That can't be true. Everyone likes the water. No, really, they hate everything. They don't seem that bad. You should invite them. Do we have to? Of course you don't have to. Good. But you should. That basically means we have to. They won't come, but I guess we can ask. Knock, knock. Click, click, click. Yes, hello? Oh, you're the neighbor kids, aren't you? Yeah. We were wondering if Paige and Brian wanted to go on the lake with us. That's a fabulous idea. They've been watching TV all day. Come on inside. Paige, Brian, the neighbor kids are here. Paige, Brian. Geez, calm down, Mom. You kids have fun. What's up? Nudge. Did you guys want to go on the lake with us? Ew, swimming? No, on boats. We have a canoe and 2 kayaks. Oh. Okay, sure, we'll go. Shrug. Really? Like, right now? Yeah, you just invited us, didn't you? Let's go. So, have you guys ever gone canoeing before? Oh no, we actually never used our arms or legs before this trip. Sarcasm, right? She learns. I claim a kayak. Me too. Guess we're canoe buddies. Oh joy. Okay, we have to wear these life jackets. Life jackets are for nerds. Well, that suits you then, Brian. I'm not a nerd, you are. It's okay, we can all be nerds together. You're the nerd, you read Star Trek books. Shut up, Nerd King. If I'm the Nerd King, I rule over you. I can't stand my brother, Splash. Do you really read Star Trek books? Ew, no. Wow, look at that fish jump, it's huge. Whoa, look at those ducks fighting. Crazy, I feel like I'm gonna tip over, but I don't. Shut up, Brian. Can't we just be quiet and enjoy nature? So what do your parents do for a living? They're accountants. Exciting, right? Do they do like taxes and stuff? Why are you so interested? I'm just trying to make conversation. Okay, right, sorry. Yeah, they do taxes. How about yours? My mom's a teacher and my dad works at a paper mill. Oh, that's nice. Hey, this is the house with the gate we saw from the road. Oh, It's fancy, but there's something creepy about it. I wonder how many people have been murdered in there. It's so weird you say that. That's what my story is about. The one you wouldn't let me read? For real, it's about this place? Yep. And murder? Cold-blooded. Wow, Agatha Prissy, I wouldn't have guessed you had it in you. Well, look at the place. It has murder written all over it. Totally. Have you ever been inside? Nope. How can you write about it if you've never been inside? With my imagination. Okay, well, can I read it now? I mean, it's just as much my idea as yours. It is not. Calm down, I was kidding. So, can I read it? They're back from their trip. Okay, you better not show anyone else. Who would I show? My brother? I doubt he can even read. Where are you guys going? I'm gonna show Brian the pregnant cat. That's a C plot. You'll just have to read the book to get. You better not hurt it. You think my brother is a monster, don't you? Well, you're the one who's always saying how terrible he is. Brian might be a jerk, but he's not cruel to animals. He secretly loves them. Okay, well, don't show that to anyone. And if you make fun of me, I'll drown you. Wow, again with the murder. I think I'm starting to like you. So here's another snippet from her book. So let me get this straight, Mr. Goldsworth. You and your wife weren't having any kind of problems in your marriage prior to her untimely expiration? Good grief, she's not a carton of yogurt, she's my wife. I apologize for my cavalier choice of words, but please, Walter, just answer the question. Are you quite certain your marriage was as smooth as these waters? Not even a ripple worth mentioning? Well, of course there were ripples here and there, but nothing that would make me. I loved my wife, detective. I built this place for her. She's a lucky woman. I mean, oh, I'm always putting my foot in my mouth, aren't I? Oh, good morning. Oh, hey, what you reading? Your story, duh. So, what do you think? I mean, honestly, it's not very good. What? Yeah, well, it's basically just a ripoff of like every other murder mystery. No, it's not. The guy doesn't even know if he's the murderer because he doesn't remember. Come on, that's original. A killer with amnesia? It's been done 100 times. Let's back up. What's his motive? I didn't figure that out yet. The killer has to have a motive. That's like the most basic rule in mysteries. Yeah, I know that, obviously. Anyway, what do you even know about writing? You probably never even go to class. Geez, don't get so wound up. You asked me what I thought. It's not like it's all bad. I mean, like the detective character is pretty funny. Yeah? Yeah, and Walter's kind of interesting. But you need more details, a lot more. 1,000,001 murder mysteries are set at some rich guy's house on a lake. So why is this one different? I want more details. What does it look like inside? What does it smell like? What kind of sinister shadows does the light cast when Walter discovers the body? What kind of noises keep him awake at night while he agonizes over the possibility that he killed his wife? What happened that night in that decadent lake house and why? Do you even know? I'm just making it up as I go. Yeah, it shows. Okay, you know how they say that to write a good character, you have to get inside their head? Well, in your story, this lake house is a character, which means we have to get inside. What? No way. See, I knew you were crazy. What's so crazy about that? It's called research. It's called trespassing. So let me see. It's illegal. You might be used to breaking the law, but I'm not. You asked me for my help, so don't go insulting me. If you're happy with your boring story, great. Any real artist knows you have to take risks to make art. But what do I know? I'm just a criminal, apparently. That's that.
Yay!
That's all I got. Yeah.
Thank you, Brenna. That was great. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, our next reader is Kat Farris. Kat Farris is a native Portlander and a member of the local comics collective Helioscope. She has illustrated many graphic novels, including former OBA finalist My Boyfriend is a Bear. Hi, Kat.
Hello, how's it going? Sweet. All right, let me share my screen here. Okay. So just to give a little bit of setup here, we have our main character, Gray, having dinner with his parents. They've just received a phone call from his teacher, and she had some disturbing things to tell them about a school project that he'd done. And so he's kind of getting the rundown from his folks. The Ghoul Next Door is a story about Gray, who befriends the ghoul that lives in the cemetery next door to his house, and their unlikely adventures together. All right. Gray, your father and I received a call from your teacher today. Some of the things she told us, well, we're a little worried. Oh, you're just not acting like yourself. Mrs. Beeman seems concerned, and we thought maybe we could help you understand what's going on. Not much to tell, really. I forgot my homework, that's all. Gray, have you been... Mrs. Beeman thought maybe... Have you been spending a lot of time in Armitage Cemetery? The cemetery? No, not really. I mean, yeah, I was hanging out there to do research on my history project, and sometimes I use it as a shortcut on the way to school, but that's it. I see. Gray, honey, your teacher thinks, and your father and I agree, that maybe it's a good idea if you avoid the cemetery for a while. Maybe you could just skip the shortcut for a while. If you need to leave earlier morning, a good idea. Or carpool, neighbors, things easier. Your father. This fascination with graveyards might not be healthy. Ghosts, guardian spirits, zombies, vampires. Please, not vampires. Sorry. Oh. Skirk. Hiss. Click. What in the world? Huh? Today we're going to continue our lesson on the history of our town. Now, I know we've all heard plenty of ghost stories about Anders Landing. While I don't believe in ghosts, our founding mothers and fathers did come here under a shroud of darkness. No discussion of our history would be complete without the mentioning of the Salem witch trials. Now, who can tell me when the witch trials of Salem occurred? 1692, a cloud of suspicion, founders, Anders Landing arrived. Crinkle. Thump. Huh. Dude, wake up. You're gonna get in trouble. Gray, I'm sorry. Are you bored by today's lesson? No, Mrs. Beeman, I'm sorry. Very well. Let's stay seated with our eyes toward the front of the class, shall we? Now, if you will all turn your books to page 74, I'd like you all to... Sorry, man. I was just trying to warn you. It's all right. It's not your fault. I am just not sleeping that well. Look what I found in my room last night. That's disgusting. What is it? I think it's supposed to be me. Let me see that thing. Well, it does kind of look like you. Smack! Hey, what do you think you're doing? I was just checking to see if it was some sort of voodoo doll or something. By punching it? What if it was a voodoo doll? I might not have thought that one through. Good thing for you, it's not. It's just a regular super creepy doll. So, your monster left that for you? Seems like it. You don't think it's gonna come to life at night, do you? Like maybe it watches you while you sleep? Maybe it stalks down to the kitchen and grabs a butcher. You're not helping. What are you gonna do? I mean, it looks like you've got yourself a secret admirer. You're funny. Whatever this thing is, it's following me. It's sneaking into my house at night. It might even be watching me right now. My parents aren't gonna believe me. They already think I'm acting crazy, but I've gotta find a way to keep this monster out of my life. Maybe it'll grow bored with you. Sooner or later, it'll find someone else to bother. Maybe. I sure hope so. The next night, and the next, and the next, and the next. This is getting out of hand, Gray. Even if this isn't a monster, even if it's just some kid playing a prank on you, that's full on yuck. Maybe it's time for you to start locking your window at night. You think I didn't try that? I check all the locks before I go to bed. I nailed the windows down. I even sprinkled some of Mom's garlic salt along the window ledge. Garlic salt? In case it's a vampire. I don't think vampires leave gifts. Whatever it is, I just wanted to stop. I bet none of this would be happening if you hadn't picked up that unlucky penny. Are you still worried about that? You've got to drop it. What am I gonna do? Can you just give the gifts back? Maybe with a nice card that says, thanks for the thought, but please stop giving me pieces of dead bodies? You know, that's not a bad idea. What's not? I'll give it all back. Thanks, but no thanks, you know? You think your folks will let you spend the night tonight? Spend the night? No offense, Gray, but you've got some sort of creepy crawly sneaking into your house. I don't think I'll ever spend the night again. Whatever it is, I don't think it's dangerous. It's not trying to hurt me. You'll be perfectly safe. Who knows? It might not even show up. Ah! Ree! You scared it off. I scared it. We can't let it get away. What? Come on, it's headed for the cemetery. What are you doing? You're not following that thing. Don't be dumb. Didn't you see? It was more scared of you than you were of it. That's what parents tell kids about snakes and spiders and stuff. And it's never true, Gray. Never. Wait, hold on a second. Wait. Boys? Hey, Mom, just got to check on something. We'll be right back. Maybe we should tell your folks. No way, they'd only stop us. Maybe we should tell your folks. This is a bad idea, maybe the worst you've ever had. Tell me again why we're sneaking around a graveyard at night. I know what I'm doing. Really? All right, I don't know what I'm doing, but we'll be all right. We tell the monster that I don't want any more gifts. We cut and run, clean and simple. Watch your step, okay? You don't want to fall into an open grave or anything. I really don't like you right now. Hello? Monster, are you out there? We aren't gonna hurt you. We just want to talk. Marshall, look out! A tunnel. It's sort of like the one I found the other day. I think it's how the monster gets around. I don't see a coffin or anything. That's a good thing, right? Wait a minute. Scree! Scree, scree, screek! Ah! Scree, scree, screek! Rats! Thousands of them! Scree, scree! Scree! They're on me! Yeah! Scree! Gray! Gray! Where are you? You saved me. The cemetery is not safe at night. Surface dwellers should stay away. This is a kingdom of the dead. You can talk? Of course I can talk. Hey, I didn't mean any harm. It's just that, you know, so far I've only kind of heard you hiss. Hiss. Yeah, like that. Are you a zombie or maybe a vampire? A guardian spirit? Ghouls. We're called ghouls. Wait, where are you going? Skirt. Wump. Gray, are you all right? Did you get eaten? I'm over here. Did you see her? The creature, the ghoul, she was right here. She was right here. Where? You want to ask where? Maybe you should ask yourself where all those rats went. I think maybe they all just ran straight into the neighborhood. And that's it.
Yay, thanks, Kat.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Kat. I love that.
It's really good. Thanks for
Yay.
sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Our next reader. Hi, Sarah. Sarah Mirk is a comics journalist, author, and teacher, formerly a reporter at the Portland Mercury and editor at Bitch. She is now a cartoonist, a contributing editor at The Nib, and a digital producer at the Center for Investigative Reporting. Her true passion is obsessively making zines. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me. Hey, the book I'm sharing is called Guantanamo Voices. And just a heads up to you guys, the previous two books have been really fun. This book is pretty dark. It's a reported story about Guantanamo Bay Prison. And so we're going to talk a little bit about prisons. I'm going to read the first chapter of it. But just a heads up, it's like a tone change. So if hearing a story about a prison is not your thing right now, totally understand. Feel free to bow out for a little bit and come back for Aron's really sweet comics after this. But I'm going to read you the first chapter of the book. This book is a reported piece of comics journalism where I write about the prison and the 10 people who have experiences in the prison, both people who work in the military, lawyers, people who are imprisoned. Then a different artist illustrates each story. So each chapter has kind of a different visual voice as well as a different voice that it's sharing. And the book starts out with the Sixth Amendment from the Constitution and a quote from the Geneva Conventions. So I'll just read them here to kind of set the tone. And then I'll read the first chapter, which is illustrated by Hazel Newlevant, also from Portland, who's so great. So in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial, to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. In the Geneva Conventions, Article 103 says, a prisoner of war shall not be confined while awaiting trial, unless a member of the armed forces of the detaining power would be so confined if he were accused in a similar offense, or if it is essential to do so in the interest of national security. In no circumstances shall this confinement exceed 3 months. I think it's important to start the book with those words that we've all agreed to. And so just keep that in mind as I'm reading. All right. Tray tables and seats in full upright position, please. We're beginning our descent into Cuba. Photos of anything toward the bay are off limits. If you shoot toward the airport, that's okay. I can't believe I'm really here. I've been wanting to go to Guantanamo for 10 years, ever since a chance encounter with a Guantanamo veteran. That looks cool. What are you making? It's a zine. Oh, nice. What's it about? It's an anti-war zine. It's about my time as a guard at Guantanamo Bay. Look, I even found parachute cord for the binding. You were a soldier? You don't look, I mean, you have like a lot of tattoos. You don't really seem the type. Yep, Michigan National Guard artillery unit. Then we got sent down to Cuba. Wow. I'm Sarah, by the way. I'm a writer. Well, I'm trying to be. I'm Chris. Chris, Aron, and I immediately became friends. I had a million questions for them. So what did you do in Guantanamo? Stared at the wall mostly. I knew absolutely nothing about Guantanamo. It was just a photo I'd seen in the newspaper, a word in a headline about torture. While known around the world, to me at age 22, it was a mostly invisible, very confusing place. It wasn't a real place full of real people. I was working as an unpaid intern at a newspaper. I wanted to be a journalist. Through getting to know Chris, I interviewed former Guantanamo prisoners and eventually other Guantanamo veterans. This was as the years dragged on, I thought Guantanamo would close, but in 2019, it's still here. I applied to attend one of the rare media tours. All right, everybody ready? This is Joint Task Force Guantanamo Public Affairs Director, Commander Adam Bashaw. So can we take photos at the prison? At the detention facility, you can photograph there. It's technically correct to call it a detention facility rather than a prison. It's not a prison? The reason why is detainees right now have not been sentenced. It'd be a similar situation where they hold people on trial. They're not in prison during that time, they're held in the detention facility. Do you use a different term for people who haven't been charged with anything? Still detainees. The only thing we ask you don't photograph there are any locks, security systems, cameras, stuff like that. You will be able to photograph the you will be able to photograph the detainees, but unfortunately not their faces. Under the Geneva Convention's Article 3, we're not allowed to do what they call making them a public curiosity. Guantanamo is a naval base, home to about 6,000 people, including the 40 prisoners or detainees. Like any American town, it feels like a small suburban town. It feels weirdly like Phoenix, but with a beach. The base has been there for a long time, since 1903, when the US set up shop in Cuba after the Spanish-American War. The Cuban government leased the land to the United States for $4,085 a year. After the Cuban Revolution in the 1950s, Castro repeatedly asked for the land back. During the night, the US refused. We continue to this day to send an annual check for the lease, which the Cuban government ceremoniously declines to cash. During the 90s, tens of thousands of Haitian and Cuban refugees were held at the base as they applied for asylum. That's why a makeshift jail was originally built, to hold refugees accused of crimes. The prison is now a separate part of the base, staffed by 1,800 people. It's run by a joint task force of 5 military branches. The joint task force draws service members and contractors from all over the world. They're assigned to Gitmo for anywhere from 4 months to a year, then rotate out to different jobs somewhere else. Commander Bashaw, who's from New Orleans, is only in charge of public affairs for 9 months. Once I retire, my public affairs days are over. I'm going to get into a whole lot of gardening and see what we can do about climate change. Honor bound, defend freedom. Everyone is focused on doing their tiny job, but each job is just a tiny, tiny piece of a big machine. The rules of the machine were set in motion nearly 20 years ago. It's no one's job, here and now, to question how the whole thing works. In January 2002, the old makeshift refugee jail was turned into Camp X-Ray. It became the most infamous prison in the world. Now, it's an overgrown ruin. One good thing to know about Guantanamo Bay is there are no venomous snakes or spiders here. At nighttime, this is a really nice place to look at the stars. It's pretty dark out here. Already, what happened here feels like ancient history. It reminds me of visiting the old internment camps in the West, the desolate, overgrown places where Japanese Americans were imprisoned and massed during World War II. But even those places aren't consigned to history. In 2019, the Trump administration ordered at least one former internment camp to start holding migrant children. This history, too, is happening right now. Since Camp X-Ray opened, 779 people have been held at Guantanamo. 40 people are still there. Of those 40 people, the US has only charged 9 with crimes. They're just waiting for years. The guard force that's here today, a lot of them are young people who have no connection to 9/11. They were kids, they were babies. Does it feel emotional at all for you to be here? When people think about Guantanamo, they think about here, this ground. When I work on any assignment, I try not to let emotion rule what I do. We have a mission to accomplish. Emotion has nothing to do with it. We have to make sure our troopers are safe, that the detainees are safe, that they're cared for under the Geneva Convention. What do you think will happen to this place in history? Do you think this will be a place people visit in the future? Oh no, they're raising it. Oh. What had I imagined Camp X-Ray would become? A memorial? We Americans never want to face our dark parts, much less enshrine them in our history. The next day, we tour the prison. Here, there are memorials. Each group of military police stationed here has left their own monument to their time on the base. I wonder if Chris's Michigan National Guard unit left a memento, but I don't see one. Mind if I search you, sir? Absolutely not. Go ahead. It's the Tao Te Ching. Wow, that's a surprise. Why is that? Well, I don't know anyone who carries Lao Tzu around in their pocket. When did you become a Taoist? Somewhere in the 80s. I like it. It's a good way to follow. Try to live as simply as possible. Do you do meditation? I try to. A lot of my meditation is listening to music, hardcore punk. Oh, really? What's a punk band you like? My favorite is actually a no-wave band, Sonic Youth. Then a lot of the old ones, Television, Joy Division, Dead Kennedys. The oldest prisoner is in his 70s. Under President Trump's orders, the prison is gearing up to be open at least another 25 years. Colonoscopies are becoming common. We're starting to see the use of canes and walkers and so forth. The doctors won't tell us their names or let us take their photos. The medical facility is expanding to make plans for hospice care. Will the men die here before they ever face trial? It seems likely. We're allowed to see the prisoners from behind a one-way mirror. It feels like a fucked up safari. We can see them, but they can't see us. I think of all the things I've done since 2002. I was in high school then. Some prisoners have been here that long. How did this get started? Thanks, everybody.
Great job, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Nice job, Sarah.
Our next reader is Aron Steinke. Hi, Aron. Aron is a cartoonist and elementary school teacher. His Mr. Wolf's class series follows the adventures of a class of oh my gosh, I can't say this word, anthropomorphs and their
And
teacher.
that's not even a word. I think anthropomorphic students is what I would change it to.
Cool.
I never caught on.
And their teacher who happens to be a wolf. Mystery Club, Mr. Wolf's class number 2 was a 2020 OBA finalist. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. And thank you to the other nominees and to everyone viewing at home. I think it's just really cool to just see all the different kinds of comics that are being made. We call it graphic literature, but anything that I would consider comics could be up for this award. And there's just a wide variety of things that can be made. So like, Sarah's reportage and, the realistic fiction of Breena's work and Kat's work, borderline, magical, realism, fantasy, and realism in my work too. So thank you for honoring comics. I'm going to share my screen in a second, but I also wanted to say, so the book I'm going to read from is called Mr. Wolf's Class Field Trip. And, it's for younger kids. It's preschool through like 5th grade, 6th grade. And the newest one just came out. It's called Snow Day. But I'm going to read from Field Trip. So here I go. Okay. So Mr. Wolf's Class Field Trip is the 4th in the series. And just to kind of set it up, the class is going on a field trip to an old growth forest, and they're going to be spending the night. And this is all kind of based on my own experience as a 4th and 5th grade teacher. And I put a lot of that in there. So the teacher is named Mr. Wolf, and he's basically a version of me. He's very similar to me, and my experiences as a teacher informed the books that I make. Okay. We're skipping a couple scenes at the beginning of the book where a student named Randy and a student named Aziza kind of have a rough sleepover, and they are now at school after that sleepover and their disagreement. And actually, one of them got hurt. Okay. Hazelwood School, Monday morning. Please leave your backpacks and sleeping bags, then go in and find a seat. I'm so excited we get to go on a field trip. You're bringing your soccer ball? I won't play with it on the bus, I promise. Hi, Margot. That's Randy right there, the cat. Zizi, Margot. Aziza, come sit with us. Uh-oh, Randy thinks. And Aziza thinks, Randy, she never apologized. Hi, Penny, can I sit with you? Oh boy, thinks Penny. Slam. Fwumph. Ha ha. Ouch. Abdi, Henry, cut it out. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Okay, everyone, please listen as I call your name and your cabin group assignment. I tried very hard to make groups that you'd all be happy with. Aziza, Margot, and Randy, you'll be with. Excuse me, I made a mistake. Aziza will be with Lola, Penny, Lizzie, and Samson's mom, Genevieve. What just happened? Margot is with Randy, Molly, and Margot's mom. But my mom is in California. I'm sorry, Margot, I apologize. You will be with Randy, my bad. Molly, and Molly's mom too. Stuart is with Oliver, Johnny, Miguel, Bobby, and Johnny's uncle Fred. The last group is comprised of Abdi, Henry, Noah, me, Samson, and Oscar. And that's Samson. But Mr. Wolf, Oscar isn't here yet. We'll give him a few more minutes, but then we'll have to be on our way. Come sit with me, Penny. Oscar, where are you? That's fine, Penny. Go ahead. You can sit with Lola. Hi, Aziza. Can I talk with you for a minute? Margot, Randy, do either of you know why Aziza is so upset? She doesn't want to tell me about it. Well, I was trying to get her to come to sit with us, but she just ignored me. I don't know what's going on. Randy, do you know what's going on? Well, sort of. We were having a sleepover at my house this weekend, but it didn't turn out so great. We kind of had a little disagreement, and I guess she's still mad at me. Maybe she just needs some time and space. Mr. Wolf, traffic is going to get worse the longer we wait. We should get going. You're right, we need to leave now. It's late. Here we go, everyone. Next stop, Battle Axe Creek. It's too bad Oscar is going to miss this trip. Stop the bus, Oscar's here. Yay, Oscar, you made it. Just in the nick of time. Did you bring your permission form? Thank you. Have a seat, Oscar. Mr. Wolf thinks relief. Phew. And now a plural noun. Beep, bloop, blup. Johnny's uncle Fred should not be playing video games on the bus with his student or with the students, but you know, can't get all the parents on board. Down by the banks of the Hinky Panky. The bullfrog. I'm not going to do that. Okay, we get to see all the kids on the bus. And the classic. There's one. You did it. Yay, awesome. Quiet down, please. So I'm going to end the reading there, but basically it takes place in the old growth forest, and it was inspired by my love of, the Pacific Northwest, and specifically Opal Creek Wilderness area and Brighton Bush Hot Springs area, the Brighton Bush Wilderness area around Mount Jefferson and Mount Hood National Forest. And yeah, that's my book. And you get to hear more about the interpersonal relationships between the students. And yeah, I'm going to stop sharing my screen if I can figure that out. Here we go.
Thank you, Aron. That was great. I'm going to welcome everyone to turn their camera back on, and then we'll see. Yay. Hi, everyone. Sorry, Aron, you had just left. There you are. I'm going to give time for some of our audience members to put questions in the chat. I see a couple. You can do it in the Q&A tab or in the chat, and I will catch that. There's a question in the chat. Great job, everybody. I'm wondering what led you to this medium? Why comics? That's a great question to start. And everyone can unmute and just kind of go.
Should we just go in order? Or if
Sure.
someone feels it?
That puts Breena on the spot.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Aron. No, I think,
Chaos.
comics for me, yeah, comics kind of came just the most naturally to me. I loved comics as a kid. I loved reading them. And I loved that you could just write and draw at the same time, two things I really loved doing from little on. And I didn't know that you could actually make a living at it, I guess. So I feel like I kind of backed into that as a hobbyist. And I actually, Trespassers is my first mainstream graphic novel. And I owe Aron a debt of gratitude because he tipped me off to a contest that Scholastic was doing to get your book published. So yeah, so I just kind of, I always loved writing and drawing these kind of like cinematic stories that I would never actually get to put to film. It's kind of like, in my mind, like a one-man movie operation, I guess. So yeah, that's why I like comics.
And I guess that means it's me next, huh? Well, I came to comics sort of through the back door of animation. Growing up, I loved comics and animation, and figured I had a better shot getting a job in animation, so I went to school for that. And when I came back to Portland, it turns out there weren't a lot of jobs in animation here for me, but I fell in with a crowd of comics people at a studio that's now known as Helioscope. And they told me that while I was waiting for my job in animation, I could always make comics and see how that went for me. And it actually went really well. So well, in fact, that I never did get a job in animation. I just continued to make comic books.
Funny. Yeah, I've made comics my whole life. You know, I drew as a kid and just never stopped drawing. And I always made comics on the side, like as a hobby, and was like pursuing a career as a very serious journalist, doing very serious stuff. And thought like comics might detract from that. Like, oh, it's like too confusing for people. You can't do both. But then after a while, I was like, I just want to do both all the time. So now I mostly make nonfiction comics and really combine those. Like journalistic experience with making comics, and I love it. And I like making comics in part because it's something that anyone can do at any time. Like all you need is a piece of paper and a pen to get started. And I love that. So I love just carrying around a sketchbook in my bag and writing and drawing when the mood strikes me. Versus making other mediums, you like need like a studio space or like a film budget or a bunch of collaborators. I like that comics is something you can just make whenever you want to, and that when the mood strikes me, I just start drawing.
Well, I didn't realize, Kat, that you had that experience, because I had a similar one. I fell in love with animation, hand-drawn animation, taught myself how to do it. I went to film school to learn how to do it. But at the time, and even still today, like a lot of those jobs exist in, 2 or 3 cities. There's Los Angeles, Vancouver, BC. Now there's like Montreal, and like there's some places that you have to move to work in that field. There's some jobs here and there in Portland, I think, but I didn't want to move to those places and work on TV shows that I didn't have any interest in. And I just worked in the food service industry trying to figure out what my art was, even though, animation was everything I wanted to do. I wanted to make my own film studio. I wanted to do so much. But then I discovered comics, and it was I'm so fortunate because, it is like what Breena said, like making a movie like on your own. And, some people might find that disparaging to the art form of comics, because it's not like, it is its own separate thing, and it has its own strengths. But the fact that, like what Kat said, you could do it all on your own too. Like you don't have to have that, or Sarah was saying, you don't have to have the budget of like, film is so collaborative, and oftentimes projects don't even get off the ground. Like I worked on a storyboard for a music video. It was like a Ben Folds music video or something. And like, I was just doing it for these people who were kind of using me for my youth and my enthusiasm. And it never got made. They made the whole video, but the studio decided they wanted a different thing that they had already filmed. And I don't like that culture of like things never getting made, even though people put time and energy into doing things. And that happens all the time with movies, TV shows. Projects get killed, but like I'm my own boss pretty much. I got to find a publisher, but if I don't, I'll publish it myself.
Yeah, I feel that same impatience, Aron. I get really impatient about work. When I have an idea, I just want to like make it and put it out in the world as fast as possible. And so I don't really want to work on a project that might never happen. I just like, if I have an idea, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to make it as quickly as possible.
Same.
Yeah, Breena, kind of circling back to your comment about, I just thought it was interesting because I'm totally not like this, but like drawing and writing at the same time. I guess I'm kind of curious about how you all work, and that's such a big question, so it could be anything. Like, yeah, it could be anything.
Can we combine that with Sean's question?
Oh, yeah.
That it says,
Does the ability to make use of computers or drawing tablets ever change how you write and develop a story?
That's my brother, by the way. Hi, Sean.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, so I think for me, like work, I have shifted to working digitally on my comics for a lot of it, and it's really streamlined the process as far as thumbnailing and penciling and inking and coloring and all of that. But I still find for writing, at least for the very first draft for me, just getting it out of my head, I do the best if I just get a sketchbook and a pencil and just let the pencil fly. And I don't know if that's, just what part of your brain is moving your hand versus, well, I guess on a tablet, you're still using that same, I don't know. There's something about just working on paper for that stage for me. And then I'll definitely kind of go back and forth between taking that, turning it into a script, turning the script into tighter thumbnails, turning thumbnail, so it's a long process, but it all starts in a sketchbook for me still, even though I love working on the iPad so much.
Man, mine's kind of the opposite. I mean, I don't do a lot of writing necessarily. I'm mostly just a hired pencil. I really enjoy drawing other people's stories. So I'm mostly just an artist. But for me, generally everything starts out digitally because I feel like I can take more risks and be a little bit more adventurous because I'm not worried about like erasing a hole in my paper if I mess up too many times. The computer kind of allows for infinite trial and error, which is nice. And also can be kind of a trap sometimes. You don't want to spend all your time trying to rework things, obviously. But I tend to make some bolder choices when I'm working digitally. So I'll start out that way so I can try and start as big as I possibly can. And then for Ghoul, I ended up just inking and coloring it in real space with actual ink and watercolor paints, because at the end of the day, I can only take staring at a digital screen for so long. When I wanted to go into animation, I also wanted to do 2D animation because I didn't want to stare at a screen all day. So it's kind of my compromise with comics is I will start digitally and then work my way to real media.
That's nice. Yeah, I do a combination as well. Like I make a lot of zines and comics just for myself, like for fun, on pieces of paper. So I have one here. So it's just drawn by hand on a piece of paper. And that's like how I express my thoughts and process what I'm thinking about. Sort of like Breena said, that's like a useful way to get a thought on the page is actually like writing or drawing it out on paper. But if I'm working on a reported comic or one where there's like another artist is drawing it, the first thing I have to do is write up the script in a Google Doc. So I write a script, it looks a lot like a movie script. It's like page 1, panel 1, text and image, what's happening. And I write out the script first so that we can get everything perfect at the script stage before they actually start drawing. And they'll usually draw digitally so that, or I'll usually draw digitally if it's me who's drawing it. But yeah, if it's something that's reported, you need to like get the text perfect and have all your citations in there and stuff, and then you can start drawing. And we go through like thumbnails, so like little storyboards, and then pencils, then inks, and then the colored final version. And there's feedback at all those rounds. So by the time you get to the colored version, it's like pretty good.
Yeah, I do a script in Google Docs myself first, or I'll also go back and forth between like kind of figuring out an outline or like a plot. I've been trying so many different things. Like I'll use sticky notes and just write different like scenes down, kind of like filmmakers will do that. Like we say they're interchangeable. Like here's a scene. I'll even just like draw like a plot kind of like mountain, like, beginning, middle, and end. And here's different scenes that happen along the way. But then I go back and I rewrite, and there's a lot of rewriting when I'm starting a book. But for me, the most fun is like really when I do all the writing stuff because I'm required to. I have to be able to communicate it to the editor for them or the publisher for them to actually understand what's in my brain. So it's really hard for me. I'm not like a natural writer. I never considered myself a writer until I had to. And I just love the visual storytelling element the most. And, I draw in a sketchbook just like you do, Breena, and that's where my sketches come to life. Like I have the plot done in Google Docs, then I translate it and I just scribble sketch. I use my whole sketchbook. I like to have big paper. I can't do it on the iPad. It's too tiny for me. I don't like that limitation. I then pencil a whole pencil draft, and then I do an ink draft, and I use a pen, like a felt tip permanent pen, and then I scan all that, and then I color it in the computer. Alec Longstreth was my colorist for this last book, so I don't color anymore necessarily, but I still have to develop the palette and the look, and then I go over all the files afterward, and that's all done in Photoshop. But I definitely have been playing around in like Procreate and Clip Studio on the iPad, and those are fun. And I maybe might be brave enough to try actually just inking in like Procreate or something. I can see the positives of it, and the time saving. Like everything is about like saving time. When I was younger, I would do these really like labor intensive, unnecessarily labor intensive kind of OCD things, and I don't want to use that term because I'm not clinically OCD, but I'm kind of realizing that I actually probably am. And because I would spend hours and hours and hours filling in pages with a tiny little pen because I had to do it that way. But I've forced myself to not do things that take too long.
Aron, before we were friends, Aron, I saw you on a panel at Stumptown Comics Fest, and you said one of your pieces of advice was for if someone was interested in being a cartoonist was learn how to draw really fast. And that has just stayed with me. So I don't know if you take your own advice more now than you used to, but that's really on point, I think, because there's so much work to it. Like when you describe it, not only like the bulk of the drawings, but then every step you have to kind of do it over and over and over again. So the faster you can work, the better.
Yeah, learning how to do hand-drawn animation was both, it had positives and negatives. Like the positive, I could just draw. The negative part was like they taught me how to do like cleanup animation, which is like for the old, like, you know, traditionally hand-drawn films, they would use a 0.3 mechanical pencil and chisel their lines over and over again, so there was no flicker between drawings. And that like
So
took me
intense.
years to shake that off.
Wow.
Now it's one line. One line.
I have a couple questions. This one's kind of fun. What was the first comic you ever made?
I made a comic when I was very, very young. It was like a zine, so it's like a folded piece of paper, and it was all the things I'm not supposed to know was the theme, and it was like every swear word that I knew. It was a drawing of what I thought sex looked like, and just other worldly things that I thought I was like, I'm not supposed to know this, and then I gave it to my parents. I was very proud of it. And my mom was like, I'm gonna put this in a special drawer for later. So
That sounds awesome.
I think one of my first comics was this, I don't even know why, because I wasn't such a huge fan, but I made these Elvis fan comics, like what I thought the Elvis fandom looked like back in,
That's really
well,
fun.
I think it was supposed to be like Elvis if he was around today or something. I was probably in like 6th grade, so it was a strange, strange bunch of stuff thrown together, but yeah.
that's so great. Why Elvis?
I don't know. Like I don't know if I even knew his music. I think I loved the like idea of such a like big celebrity or something. But yeah.
I
Could have
think
done the Beatles.
you could have. Man, I think the first comic that I made was for a school assignment. My 7th grade teacher was incredibly cool, and we had a comics unit. So I drew this comic called Desert Storm, and it was a take on the X-Men, which I loved very much at that age, but it was anthropomorphic animals. So there was like a coyote and a cat and a wolf, and they were all dressed in superhero spandex outfits, fighting some evil vulture. It was quite the comic. I took it very seriously.
That sounds rad. I love it.
I didn't really draw like sequential images until I was like doing storyboards for my potential animated film. So like when I was younger, I would just draw scenes, like battle scenes and stuff like that, with maybe word balloons coming out of some of the characters. But I was into like superhero comics when I was like in 3rd and 4th grade, and I would try to copy them, and I would try to draw my own, but I never got farther than like the cover, and maybe even like I couldn't even finish the cover either. So I never figured out how to like pose characters. So if I was trying to emulate like Peanuts or like Garfield or something, I probably would have figured out how to draw comics sooner, because I feel like looking at the way like a lot of that mainstream superhero comics I was reading as a kid, I didn't understand how it was drawn, and there's no through line in the these muscles and stuff, and I'd rather, I wish I would, had read like, I don't know, Life in Hell by Matt Groening or something. I would have figured out how to draw, comics sooner. maybe I did like Far Side-ish stuff. I do remember
Mhm.
Desert Storm happening when I was a kid, and I do have one comic. I drew these like fighter planes, and they're watching CNN on the fighter plane, and the pilots are asking each other how they're doing while they're watching CNN, and they're dropping bombs at the same time. Yeah, I still have it. So it was pretty profound.
That's what I was gonna ask. Does anyone have these early comics still?
I do. Mine's at the studio, unfortunately, or I would haul it out right now.
I have a bunch of comics I drew about my dogs as a kid, my dogs having like
Mhm.
adventures in their own inner lives. My parents still have those. Yeah.
That's very Far-Sidean also.
Yeah, I was super inspired by like, like Calvin and Hobbes and Far Side, and
Mhm.
yeah, drew the epic adventures of my two dogs.
I have another question. You all kind of touched on being impatient and that being the motivating force. Any tips for artists or writers for staying motivated other than being impatient?
I pretty much only work on things I'm curious about and really want to work on. So when you're making a book, it's like a year of your life or 6 months or so. So it has to be something you're really curious about already. And I just like don't really work on things I'm not interested in. That's how I stay motivated.
Yeah.
I don't do things I don't want to do. That's it.
Aw.
I was talking to my friend Martha Grover, who's a writer, yesterday on her like Instagram, and she and I were talking about like giving yourself like small victories. Like it's a big project, so like my first graphic novel I was working on, doing a whole page was too overwhelming to me, so I would like cut out squares, and each panel would be a sense of accomplishment, so I could draw one drawing at a time. So if you think about like the post-it note could be a good one panel model. And so, don't overwhelm yourself with too much, and try to tell a small story,
Yeah, starting small is really important. I've definitely tried to start the big epic comic series and gotten burned out like 160 something pages in because it's just so daunting and so overwhelming. But I like to break things up into stages so I can give myself rewards very frequently. Otherwise, it's hard for me to stay motivated. So like I will start with my thumbnails and I will turn in like every 20 pages to my editor. So every batch of 20 pages of thumbnails I have feels like a victory because it's like a neat compartmentalized thing that I can then send off and then relax for a day and then go back to the next batch of 20, et cetera, et cetera. And I work through my big projects like that. It's really helpful to keep going because if I just had to think of it like for Ghoul especially, which was 192 pages worth of comics, if I had to think about that just as 192 pages, I probably would never have gotten out of bed. It wouldn't have happened much.
We have another question.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say they covered it. I think that's all great advice. So.
Question in the Q&A: Are there elements of developing the story in a graphic novel different than developing a short story or a novel? What advice do you have for developing a great, viable storyline? I can repeat that. I think I said it kind of weird.
That's okay. We can read it.
Oh yeah, you can see it.
Like, how do you develop a viable storyline for a novel?
Well, for a graphic novel, I mean, it depends on if you're planning on being the artist for it. Like if you are going to do the drawings, like I would start with sketching out characters and developing the world. And, you're going to be spending a long time drawing. So you might as well draw things that you like to draw and figure out that stuff early. So like my Mr. Wolf's Class stuff, like I actually did mini comics. I did 5 years of mini comics before I ever did any of the books. And that was me working it out ahead of time. So it's a visual medium. So, I would say if you're just going to do a script, that's different. And I don't really understand that world because I always do my own stuff.
Yeah, you definitely have to think
Yeah.
about the artist. Even if you're not going to be drawing it yourself, but I guess even especially if you're not going to be drawing it yourself, you have to think about the artist and how they're going to work from your script. Whereas a novel, like it's just you're writing it and you're creating all the imagery with words. For a graphic novel, someone's going to have to create that imagery with actual pictures. And so you have to be able to communicate your script in such a way that the artist can like understand what you want and turn that into a project that is readable by other people. And the letterist also has to work on it, and the colorist possibly also has to work on it too. Like sometimes it can be a whole team project and you have to think about all of your collaborators while you're working with it.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's visual obviously is the biggest difference from a prose novel, but for me, like the way that you edit comics, I guess, in the, you know, whether you're ideally you're doing the heaviest edits from the loosest sketches from the beginning, you know, before you have like all, I found this out the hard way, I should say, through Trespassers, which had a lot of finished artwork before I won that contest. And then going back to edit finished artwork was so much more work than if I had been able to start from the beginning and turn in some loose thumbnail sketches. Because it's such a puzzle once you have a page kind of locked in, and then if your editor says, you know, such and such needs to move around or whatever it is, like, it's just, I don't know what the advice or the suggestion here is, except that, like, I would say, like, the earlier you can get feedback on the story based on like the loosest version of the artwork is probably going to save you time in the long run. And yeah, I learned that the hard way, I guess, but it's a good lesson to learn. So
Yeah, I think that's all really good advice. That's why, like, I always start with like a script and then thumbnails, and you give edits in the script and the thumbnails, and you like do not advance to like the actual art until you have all of that hammered out. And then I don't know, I think writing like a novel versus a graphic novel in terms of story, it can be a lot the same. But with a graphic novel, you have to think that there's going to be not a lot of text. So think about it visually. How can the images tell a story for you instead of you having to say it in words? And one thing I see with people that don't write a lot of comics when they're trying to write a graphic novel, they cram way too much into every panel. So it'll be like, panel 1, when she was 17, she saw the full moon out the window and realized that her life was a lie, you know? And you're like, okay, that's like 3 pages. That's not one panel, you know? So you really, like, in a book, you can say like one sentence that has a lot of information in it. And if you're having the images tell the story with a minimum of text, you really have to kind of space it out more. That doesn't mean you can't have the same amount of information. Like, you have to think of how are the images going to convey this. Maybe you just see the person, you see the full moon, you see their face. You don't even need to explain what they're in text, what they're thinking at all, because the images can do the storytelling for you.
I know not all of you work with an artist, but some of you do. How much how does the collaboration work? Do you like make notes in the written part for the artist, or do you meet in person? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, I explain in the script what the image should be, and then I share it with the artist, and they can make notes back on that. And I try and make sure, like, I do it page by page. If it's going to be a print comic, so it'll be like page 1, panel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and really keep an eye on like how is the pacing working on the page? You know, is it a lot of action crammed into one page, or is this a place where there's like more of a somber feel, so we want to take more time with it? Like, I try and keep an eye out both for the pacing of it and the mood of each page. But yeah, I do suggest an image for each panel. And then when the artist reads it, if they do thumbnails and they're like, that doesn't work at all, we can totally change it. Like, I'm very, like, I want to like work in collaboration with artists rather than being like, this is what you draw, you know? So that's how I work.
I think the rest of us are primarily visual.
Cool. I have one more question. This person asked for comic artists, but I'm just going to open it up. Do you have other favorite artists, period? Or media that you're consuming while you're working?
I have a million favorite artists, so I can't even recommend any because there's too many. So I'll just jump straight to media that I'm listening to while I'm working, which is shout out to the Libby app, which is the library's audiobook app. It's just like Audible, but it's free. So if you like to listen to audiobooks, Libby, Libby, can't recommend it more. I listen to audiobooks all the time.
I think it depends. Like, it's really hard for me to listen to people talking when I'm writing or when I'm thumbnailing. But if I'm penciling or if I'm inking, for sure, I can listen. I can watch movies. It's like pure bliss when you're inking because you're just tracing lines. That's all you're doing. And there's some part of your brain that is really thinking about the line. But I can definitely take in lots of other information. That's when, like, I'll probably listen to David Lynch's autobiography again, A Room to Dream, because that was a Libby app one I used from the Multnomah County Library, and music all the time for other stuff. I always listen to music.
Sounds like a cool book. I haven't listened to it.
It's good.
Yeah, I'm the same as you, Aron. I can listen to anything during ink. I can't listen to anything except for when I'm inking, and then I can, like all the podcasts and everything I've been missing for the months that I've been doing everything else, I kind of just start cramming in. But I love listening to the Ringer Network podcast. They have it's a sports network, but they have all these great movie podcasts that I love. So like the Rewatchables and The Big Picture. Like I mentioned the cinematic approach I try to take to comics. So it actually feels like it's maybe informing me a little bit as I go, but it's also just really fun.
I do a lot of instrumental music especially while I'm thumbnailing and penciling, because I have to think more and I can't think while someone's talking at me. But I do like to have the music because it helps to keep me focused and in my seat. But once I get to inking, like no holds barred, like whatever it is, podcasts or just even being in a studio with other studio mates and like just having conversations with people while I'm doing my inks. Also a nice time. Yeah, mostly music though. I find it's the least distracting thing that I can listen to.
Right, everybody. I want to thank you for being here. Well, before I close out, is there anything you want to ask each other? I realize there isn't always time for people to ask each other questions.
Sarah, is there going to be a nib for kids?
I think there is kind of a nib for kids. Do you know Illustoria magazine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe we can like all say like our favorite thing about making a book. What's your favorite thing about it?
My favorite thing about making books is I just enjoy making them. Like, I mean, it's just the creation process is incredible. But then like making books for kids, like I hear from, parents and teachers and from kids themselves who like learned how to read from reading my books, or like, like a parent will say, my kid hates reading, but they're reading your book and they haven't stopped, and I haven't seen them at dinner time or whatever, like it's just really cool. Like I actually like kids are learning how to read with my stuff. It's like I tried so hard as a teacher to get kids to learn things. They're just doing it through osmosis with my book. So it's so cool.
It's awesome. Yeah, I think for me, it's just having an outlet for like all the, I don't want to say the fantasy world, but just all the stories that have always kind of lived in my head or like in my hobby life, to actually get a chance to find one that works on a broader level and then have an audience for that is just like a dream come true. So that's pretty cool.
I think my favorite part is when it's finished and you get the box of books from your publisher and you're holding it in your hand for the first time and you're just like, oh my God, look at this. It's so beautiful. It looks like a real comic. I feel like a total professional.
And you're like, I don't have to make this book anymore. It's already done.
All the blood, sweat, and tears are over. And now I just have this gorgeous book
Yeah.
to show everyone.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. Thanks to our audience and everyone who asked a question. And it was great seeing you and hearing your work. And I hope I see you at the ceremony.
All right. Thanks for hosting. Thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank
thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Go and draw your own comics.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Literary Arts.